This is Nan McKay, and I would like to introduce you today to DeLisa Guerrier. As managing partner of Guerrier Development, DeLisa Guerrier is one of the few Black women in the state licensed as a general contractor for commercial, residential, and industrial development. She is also the youngest addition to the Enterprising Women Hall of Fame. That's big. She is well renowned for a major project, and it's going on in Nashville. As the CEO, founder, and majority stakeholder in Storyville Gardens theme park, Guerrier is breaking ground on a $300 million family destination. It's expected to create 2,260 jobs in the construction phase and over 1,700 jobs created in the park upon completion. So let's find out more about this fascinating woman. So welcome, DeLisa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, DeLisa, I've just been fascinated by your background. Your mother was a welder and a pile driver in San Francisco, which is really a non-traditional field for women.
That's
Was
right.
she a role model for you by any chance growing up?
Absolutely. I joke around when people ask me, how did I get into this? And I say, I cheated. I watched my mom come home every day with her Carhartts and her work boots, and they did an article on her that's out there. If you Google Lisa Walker in San Francisco, where she is driving pile and welding. And I said, if my mother can build a bridge, I can build just about anything. So,
Well, it seems to me that you are building something even bigger than a bridge. But tell me a little bit, how did you segue into real estate development?
yes. So I went to college for biology. I was biology pre-med. I was headed to medical school. And I met my husband, who grew up in Haiti and just has a natural knack for business. And as I saw him, he was in the automotive industry, owning and operating his company. I had the choice of leaving to go to medical school or jumping into his company with him to help him grow it. So I chose the latter. And in a short time, we grew that company from roughly 100,000 a year to doing just under 10 million a year. And so during the time of me running the entire back end of the automotive company, I had a real estate license. So I was learning about the different areas in Nashville. I was seeing the different trends. It was really, I was helping families, buy homes, but I was also learning so much about the market. We had this big vision to just own a lot of rental properties. So we purchased land around the city, and Nashville's market it outpaced, the people moving here. So the need for housing grew faster than how fast you could sell a house. And so we naturally transitioned into real estate development. We used to hire builders to come build for us on property that we owned. And after I became a licensed contractor, we started putting teams together just to build our projects ourselves. So we grew organically from just 1 and 2 homes here and there to pocket neighborhoods, 30 units, 60 units, to multifamily developments and mixed use developments. So that was sort of how it happened, all in a whirlwind. But during that whole time, we were running our automotive company.
I'm curious about the time frame because, we're in a market right now, which sounds very similar to what you were dealing with then. And when you're talking about supply and demand. So what time frame are you talking about in this real estate development?
So I really started back in 2011. And during that time, I don't know if you know much about Nashville's real estate market, but 3 years ago, we were 10,000 doors short for the housing need. Even with all the construction going on, we're 40,000 doors short now. We have about 100 people moving here a day, and it's been that way for the last couple years. We have huge headquarters relocating here, Oracle, Amazon, that's just creating these jobs, which is bringing so many people, and we have to find a way to find a house for them. So that's how that's how really, you know, our development company grew with the market.
That's really interesting. What, thinking back to the company that you did with your husband, what would you attribute that big growth from in that company?
Yeah, other than the grace of God, you know, it's difficult to say. I would say he has a natural knack for business, as I shared, where he is probably, he runs circles around anybody just when it comes to putting deals together and seeing opportunity. And I'm sort of the execution piece. So he throws all these ideas and then I execute. And I think that it was no different for that automotive company in terms of the growth, because he had me there to execute everything that we needed, from the financial side to the packages to just, you know, creating room for growth as he was doing deals. So it was a great partnership. We had a fun time with that company.
It sounds like a great team. And
Yes.
a lot of times, especially in marriages, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But if you can put a team together where you've got two strong areas, each of you that are a little different in those areas, but complementary, it can be great.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. And we don't know anything different. When we decided that we were going to be together, we worked together. So I never have worked without him. There are projects that are more mine than his. I actually had to pull him into real estate development. I sort of led that you know, march, and we ended up scaling back our automotive company because we've been so busy with real estate development.
Well, it's good you have both, because, you know, if you have one market that gets soft and one market that really goes, why, you know, you've got your bases covered in two areas, which sounds really smart.
That's right. We have several companies and things going, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Diversifying is the way to go.
What unique problems as a woman did you have in starting your business?
I would say, because real estate development is such a male-dominated industry, most people thought that my husband was the decision maker. They thought that he was the contractor. They, you know, and so there were a lot of conversations. There was one conversation I'll never forget, where a gentleman walked into our office and I started asking him questions about some commercial property. And he said, you know, this is still he said, this is still a good old boy town. He said, and it's very male dominated. So that's why I come in here and talk to your husband. And he just walked right off and went straight to my husband. And it was shocking because it had never been that blatant. But it's what I felt for a long time. It was just the first time someone vocalized it. So those were really the large part of the problems. Thankfully, my husband is not afraid to speak up and say, no, my wife runs this company. She's the decision maker. And it's been exciting to see. A lot of people weren't ready for that, but he's really good at it, redirecting them to where they should have been.
Well, that really helps. In that situation that you just went through, that you talked about, did you just sit there and say, yeah, he's back here, or what'd you do?
No, he walked off by himself. I sort of laughed, you know, to myself, not that it was funny, but almost in disbelief. And I told myself, one day he's going to come to me and ask me to, you know, be involved in my properties. The roles are going to change, and I'm sure of it. And that satisfied me enough to where I didn't have to say anything. And sure enough, it's already happened.
Good for you. What would you say is your number one strategy to advise a woman business owner just starting out? What would you say?
I would say, and this will make a lot more sense when we get into talking about Storyville. When you have a vision, when you have a goal, when you have something that is planted in your heart to do, sometimes it seems overwhelming because maybe you don't have the tools and resources to do it. But what people don't realize is all you have to do is take the first step and take the next step. And the steps will continue to show themselves as you move. And I'm living proof of it. And one day you'll look back and you'll see how far you've come. But that has been my number one piece of advice is if you can do one thing every day that furthers you along that goal that you have, then you'll look back and see the fruits of it.
Well, it sounds like that's exactly what you have done. And you're saying don't give up, even though, do you ever feel like giving up? Have you ever felt like that?
No, I think we've all hit stumbling blocks, but you call it faith, call it drive. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but mine has been pretty unmoving. And because of that, I've seen over and over in small things and large things that whatever I push forward, it gets done. And so because of that, I never feel like giving up. Sometimes I do need a break, like a spa day or something. Just maybe a guy would go play golf, but I need just a few minutes to reground myself.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I'd really like to hear about your passion project, the Storyville Gardens theme park. How did it get started and what was your role and all that kind of stuff? Tell me all about it.
So I always like to say that with real estate development that I'm tasked with the responsibility of creating a project that'll last a lifetime or two. And, and it's always about finding a need in a community and filling that need. So Storyville was no different. Here in Nashville, we have a lot of families here. We have a lot of, of children here, but there's not really many things to do for children. Nashville's known for Broadway and for bachelorette parties, but it gets under my skin when I see children walking on Broadway. So I have 3 children. I wanted to provide a place for them to have some fun, to have an adventure. I grew up in Northern California, so there was always some sort of fun to do. I also have this huge respect for reading and for writing. I grew up watching my grandmother read novels in a day and write poetry. So there's this study that shows that if we can get a child to read for fun, anything, that their test scores will increase. And so the entire project was based off of how do we provide an environment where children can read for fun and or be encouraged or inspired to read for fun. And so that's what we did. We have roller coasters, we have all sort of adventures in Storyville, but they're all designed with the intention for children to read more.
That's really important because it seems like today so many kids are just glued to that phone or glued to the TV set, watching the video, and reading kind of gets put over here.
Yes, and it's the way that we designed it. So this was an original vision for me 5 years ago. I thought that it would be a small little intimate park, and I ended up meeting a lot of people who have been really giants in the theme park industry that came and took my small vision and grew it to actually the size that the Nashville market dictated. So Nashville is one of 2 markets that had a proven track record for a successful amusement park that's no longer in operations. And it is a huge need here. So you're right. We just wanted to focus on how do we provide this interactive experience that would encourage children to read. One big example that I'll give, and this usually makes it make sense for a lot of people, is if you can see what happened with Harry Potter. Harry Potter, I know adults that I travel with, and they say, well, we're not going to Universal until after I finish reading this series. And if we can do that on a grander scale and bring in cultural elements and bring in stories that have withstood the test of time, and it encourages a child to either pick up a book or a pen, then I think we've done our job.
So this is like an amusement park, but it's stories that they would recognize, or how does a story come into it?
So it is an amusement park. We have all different types of rides and adventures, but they're all based on different books and stories from all over the world. So we have 4 corners of the world. You walk into an area representing Africa, and we have things like Anansi the spider's webs and Aesop's fables, and just adventures that really represent those type of stories that children will be able to interact with. They'll be able to climb through, fly through. In the area representing Asia, we have the Orient Express roller coaster ride. And there's things that happen during the queue line. There's things all around just the different areas that will allow them to interact with these stories in ways that they haven't before, and in ways that will encourage reading. So Europe, there's things like Geppetto's Tower, or Geppetto's Theater, I'm sorry, Rapunzel's Tower. We have the Grimm Story Dark Ride. And so it will be exciting and delightful for all ages.
I'm always thinking about low-income families, because they were our clients for years and years when I worked for a housing authority. Is there any way that you can make it affordable in any way for low-income families to attend?
Yeah. So right now, with all of our models, we are significantly below on our admission price, even where Dollywood is. So Dollywood's a couple hours away from the Nashville area. But, we have a nonprofit arm to Storyville. It's called Storyville Gardens National Literacy Center, that will be in the center of Nashville. And it really will be a hub that pulls together programs like reading recovery programs, book clubs, writing workshops, and it'll be a place where other nonprofits that are aligned with literacy can use that space. And the goal is to incentivize children. Imagine a 30-day book club for 13-year-olds, and they know that after they finish the book, that they have a day pass to Storyville Gardens theme park, and probably a big bus transportation that can come pick them up and take them to the park for that day. So there will be a great synergy for children to read their way into Storyville.
It just sounds great. How did you get from the idea over here all the way to fruition over here?
Well, other than the grace of God, like I shared, it was really one step, one day at a time, and the right people coming onto the team, from our design team, making introductions to feasibility consultants, to then bringing in CFOs and the right local team here on the government relations and public relations side. And then we have an incredible construction manager, owner's rep, who was able to bring in the contractor side on the budgeting, and that led to us being able to get our financing done. So we secured $316 million for our first phase last year, and then we opened it up for a small equity raise to bring in the right equity partners who wanted to take this ride with us, and that was actually completed last year as well. So we are a lot further along than we put out in a press release back in June. We're just looking forward to announcing the site and keeping everybody excited and updated.
When do you think it'll actually open?
It will open the 2025.
Okay. So let's go back and think about What adversity have you overcome, you personally, that maybe women and mothers could relate to today?
Yes. When taking the position that I took in our company and deciding to be a businesswoman and to be involved in not only the big picture of my real estate development company, but also into the weeds, into the details, and even sometimes going out on the sites. There's a huge mommy guilt that I had having 3 children. There's also this letting go of things that I felt like were my responsibility, things that I needed to get done around the house that, you just grow up knowing that these are things you have to take care of. And one day I realized, I said, DeLisa, not everything is going to get done because I can't do it all. Number 2, not being afraid to ask for help. So hiring a cleaner, hiring people to do our laundry, those were big pieces. And then of course, just the time with my children and making sure that I manage and I block off the things that are important. So I stopped working on the weekends. I still struggle with my husband working on the weekends, but I am sitting around the house with the kids and just spending time with them.
Well, being inducted into the Enterprising Women Hall of Fame is a huge honor. How do you feel about being a role model for other women, especially younger women?
Yeah, well, I say it's a huge honor. It's also a big responsibility because, I want to position myself to be accessible, and think if someone were there for me to ask questions to help me understand things and get to my next level, it would have been great. And I know I don't have a lot of time, but when people reach out, I try to respond and I try to set up meetings and to just respect that and respect that title and that role. So I'm just honored, and I just pray that I continue to make everyone proud. So.
Well, I'm sure you will. Tell me what you think are the top 3 takeaways that you'd like people to have gotten from your interview.
I would say number 1, that it is okay to go against the grain. Sometimes, the road always traveled is not the road that you're supposed to be on. And sometimes that's a hard shift for women and for people who are used to just certain roles, right? And that worked for me. I decided to go against the grain. I would say number 2 is that when you have something impactful that you feel like you're being led to do, sometimes it requires a level of sacrifice. And for me, that meant, I'm not as social as I used to be. I don't get to hang out with, friends from college much, but I love them and appreciate them and think about them whenever I do. But the time that I have put into my company and the work that I had in front of me is a big reason why I think I am where I am. And that took sacrifice. It took me to say no to vacations, and then I'm a big believer, this is my number 3, that when I'll say when God gives you an idea or a task, that it is because he trusted you to get it done. That's how I look at it. And not only that, but even if you can't see the tools, that he'll bring the tools to get it done. And so I just hope that encourages someone who has this dream, who has this vision that they've just been sitting on to actually take the step.
And that's what you did. And look how far you've come.
Yeah.
And I mean, anyone that can get that kind of an award has got to really have made some big strides and made a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
I would say that I think a secret, not only to my real estate development company, but to Storyville, to really how I approach every company that I own, every task that I take on is by looking at it with three things: the people, the package, and the purpose. And if you have the right people, sometimes, you need a team to get things done. Put the right people in place. The package, with Storyville, I was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning every morning because I had this thing in my head that I needed to get out on paper. And it started like that, but it grew into this package that was then presentable to other people. So a package is important. And then, and I say to that if it's in your head, it's an idea, but when you put it on paper, it becomes a plan.
I like that. I like that.
Yes. And then the third one is the purpose. Everything that I do and that I take on, it has some sort of give back. There is a purpose, a mission, a big, how are we going to help in some way, someone with this initiative? And that drives a lot of my projects and really is where my heart is. So I hope that helps someone.
Definitely. And when you say, I'm just going to repeat this because it's so good. When it's in your head, it's in an idea. When it's on paper, it's a purpose. Is that what I heard you say?
When it's on paper, it's a plan.
A plan. That's right. A plan. That was great. I really liked it.
Thank you.
It has been so much fun to speak with you. You've accomplished so much so early in your life that it's going to be exciting to watch and see what you do with all the rest of it.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, DeLisa. It's been great, and we wish you loads of luck and success in your future.
Thank you so much.